they know that they have to practice data structures and algorithm, but the question is, should they practice DSA in Python or Java or C++ or C or any other language, right? The kind of questions that I was facing in online assessment round of those product based companies were really different. It was like it's not the similar that I'm not going they are not asking me how can I reverse a linked list, or how can I find the diameter of a tree, or how can I do disgust algorithm, right? Hi everyone, my name is Yogesh, and today we are going to talk upon how did I master programming, right? So we are going to discuss that how do I master programming, or specifically DSA, that is data structures and algorithm, right? Because anyone who is preparing for a product-based company, right? So data structures and algorithms help in determining the problem-solving skill of a candidate, right? So it's a really important skill that companies often look in their candidate, right? Okay, and we are also going to discuss that how was my experience and how did I, because the topic is that how did I master programming, right? And what are the challenges I faced and how did I overcome it, and how did I also manage the time. So we are going to discuss all those things, right? So we are going to talk about these things. And before discussing or jumping right to the topic, you should always remember that mastery or excellence in topic doesn't come suddenly, right? Expertise in any topic can't come suddenly, right? So it comes with time, it comes with experience, it gives giving more time and time, right? So as I'm saying that the topic is related to mastery, right? So it doesn't specifically stick to the topic or data structures and algorithm or programming. Like any skill you are learning, right? Any skill you are learning, so how can you master? Of course by practice, right? Practice and practice more and more, because you have often heard you must have often heard that if someone is being consistent in any of the skill, right? So if he's being consistent in any practicing in any of those skill, whether it's for example, if you are playing football, if you are playing cricket, if you are in sports, right? Or if you are in any of those things, right? But if you are being consistent, then it helps in becoming you mastery, right? Then you can become master of that particular skill. And how do you become consistent? Consistent comes with the practice, right? For example, if I specifically stay this topic, or like relate this to our topic, that is programming, right? Or DS and algo. So how can you be master at DS and algo? That you can practice more and more number of questions, right? Of course, but it shouldn't be like a pattern that you are practicing same kind of questions, so that would also not make a sense. Although we are going to come upon that too, right? We are going to discuss each and everything. So I'll start that how did I became like how did I begin my journey of programming, right? So when I was learning programming, so of course the first challenging part the students nowadays, or like at my time also, because now I'm a final year student graduate. So my career with computer science began in 2018, right? So at that time, like students were confused about programming, and like if we talk about beginners, so they are still too, right? That first of all, the first question comes to their mind is like, should I they know that they have to practice data structures and algorithm, but the question is, should they practice DSA in Python or Java or C++ or C or any other language, right? So and actually I did waste kind of I did waste around 2 months to figure out that okay, this is the language, like Python is the very easy one, C++, trying my hands on C++, then learning the basics of Java, right? So let me tell you one thing, that choosing a programming language should not be an any issue, right? Because for example, consider a program, right? Consider for example, if I want to say, hey, just find a duplicate in an array, right? So what, and I ask one guy to code in C++, I ask other guy to code in Java, and some other guy to code in Python, right? So what do you think, what it will change? Will the logic change? No, I don't think so that the logic is going to change. Although of course it depends, that someone might be logically more strong, or could come up with a boom like optimized solution, or but I'm talking about generally, right? So generally you see that problem solving skill, or like if we talk about problem solving skill, right? So implementation part or logic remains same. What does change, right? Code change, right? I mean syntax changes, right? For example, if we talk about Python, so in the Python I would be writing, if like the way I write colon, and I'm using print statement, right? And if we talk about C++, then I would be using cout. If I would be using Java, then I would be using system.out.println. So the thing is that syntax is going to be changed, not the programming, not the logic, right? So you should be able to figure it out as soon as possible, because if you're watching that video, then I must tell you that do not waste time time in searching or in searching out for the languages, that which language should you pick, you can pick any of the languages. But if you ask me, right, because if you are watching the video, then you are here for the solution, not for just an advice, right? So if you ask me, then I could say that you can, if you're a beginner, then you can begin with Python, right? Why Python? Because Python is a very English type of language. Like the syntax or the things are very more you could say relatable, or very more meaningful, right? Or it's more kind of an English language, so you can begin with Python. But if you specifically but there is another pro and con of these things, although not, I shouldn't say pro and cons of other things, but when you are preparing for a product based companies, so in the product based companies, they also often ask you OOPS, that is object oriented programming, right? So for that time, oops, and some companies also ask about the pointers and how this memory allocation happens in our system, right? So if we talk about those things, then C++ and Java has really like it gives you really good understanding of oops and how those things like how those things work, right? And the pointer specifically in C++, because nowadays companies have also started asking about LLD, that is low level designing. For example, if you have encountered or if you have seen that someone was asked in an interview to design a parking lot or design a lift, right? An elevator system. So how does this work? This works with the help of an OOP system. So this gives you an edge, right? I mean, if you are learning C++, if you're beginning with C++ or Java, right? So you can begin with any of those languages because it gives you an edge that you don't have. You can also learn the OOPs and pointer kind of things in advance. Although if you begin with Python, then no worries, you can also learn about OOPs separately also, right? Okay, so after that, what I did, that I did my course with Coding Ninjas, right, at that time. And because there was no online course available in 2018, like there were not much of, I shouldn't say that no, but I shouldn't say that there were, I wasn't aware of the very much courses which are available online, right? So I got to know about this Coding Ninjas from one of my friend, and then I joined the course, enrolled in it, and I pursued the data structures and algorithms in Python, right? So and after that time, after finishing with the course, that like in that thing, like when I finished the course, so I was able to have the good understanding of Python, like how those things work, if else statements, and I was really familiar, or I should say I was very comfortable with Python, right? Okay, and then my second module began, that was with data structures and algorithms in Python. And I should say this was the challenging one, because here I wasn't just using or using the statements or using those things, but here I will have to actually think upon those logic, because I was starting with recursion, I was learning sorting algorithms, I was learning with linked list trees. So these things were all new to me, and honestly, they seemed to be pretty overwhelming at first. But never mind, like there was the doubt support and all those things, because right, because the challenging part is when you are a beginner, right? So at that time you want someone to hold your back, or like someone that you should like you could ask a question, right? For example, if I'm stuck somewhere, right, so then whom should I ask, right? Because that's the most that's the another part of whenever you are learning from an online course, right? Then that how you are going to ask the questions. But there was the teaching assistant support was provided by the Coding Ninja, so all those things. So what do I mean to by say that I began my career of programming with Coding Ninjas, right? And after finishing my data structures and algorithms, right, so I was very comfortable in solving questions. Like I mean, if I can say that if someone was going to ask me, hey, this is the question from tree, or this is that you have to find the height of a tree, or you have to find reverse a linked list, you have to merge two shorted linked lists, and you have to do graph traversal and all those things, dynamic programming and all, right? So at that time I was really comfortable. I wasn't like shocked, right, that oh, this is the stuff that I'm learning or I'm listening for the very first part, right? Okay, because the course consists about 350 to 400 questions, right? And if you solve those 350 to 400 questions, you have a very good command, or like you have very good understanding, and your basics should be clear, right? But now if you okay, so this was the part that I was beginning with it. But when my college placement began, right? So when my college placement began, then I was giving online assessment, right? Online assessment of many companies like Amazon. I gave for Flipkart too, and there were some companies that I already gave like credit for off campus too, right? But at that time I was finding that dude, these questions are not actually enough for me. Why? Because these 350 or 400 questions, or the course provided by the Coding Ninjas, is really helpful in building your in clearing your fundamentals very clear, right? In building your basics very more strong. But the kind of questions that I was facing in online assessment round of those product based companies were really different. It was like it's not the similar that I'm not going, they are not asking me how can I reverse a linked list, or how can I find the diameter of a tree, or how can I do discuss try algorithm, right, and how can I do dynamic programming. So I wasn't like, there was very little chances that I was going to see these questions. But then later I got to realize, I mean, I want to say one thing, that not only coding ninjas, but if you pursue course from any other coding institute, or learning from any other resources, right, no course can make you perfect. No one can make you perfect. It's you, it's up to you that who can make you perfect and who can make 100% out of it, right? For example, if someone says, hey, I am practicing, consider there is a module present in coding ninjas named array, right, and they have given for example, they have explained 5 questions by themselves, and they have given 5 questions to practice for me, right, and I have completed those 10 questions. But do you think that array only consists of 10 questions? No, it doesn't. Does recursion only consist 10 questions, 10 to 15 questions? No, it doesn't. I mean, it's a lot more than that. So what do I mean by that? Then I later got to realize that no, it can't be like that, that I would be only dependent upon this course or any of the resources that I was, because I was also very curious to learn data structures and algorithms, and I somehow wanted to crack good decent companies, right? Because that's the motive of anyone who's preparing for a product based company, right? So I was preparing I was trying my really hard for that. Then I thought that like it shouldn't be like that. I would be practicing only these basic questions, because these basic questions have helped me in building my basics clear, or becoming my fundamentals. Like it has cleared my fundamentals clear. But if now I want to excel, right, or if I want to do mastery, for example, if I want to solve a very hard kind of problems also in the tree, for example, if you want to do the tree traversal, the top view of a binary tree, left view of a binary tree, right view of a binary tree, right? So I was like, I will have to solve more and more question, and will also have to learn more and more algorithms, because it can't be like that. Not only specifically to this, when you are preparing in a product based company, preparing for a product based company, but in a software engineering field, you shouldn't stop learning ever. If you would be like, hey dude, I have learned this thing, I don't want to go upon that, no, it's not going to work. Because if you really want to survive in this CSE field, then it's like every day should be a new challenge for you, and every day you are learning something out of it, or out of your job, or out of whatever thing you are doing, right? So of course then I started learning, because the one thing that my stuck in my head was like, when I was going through this course, then it made my habit kind of, I made kind of habit that if I want to learn anything, any new thing, then I would be learning only from the videos. And I think this was the really worst part, because whenever I was learning any new thing, then what would be doing, I would be just googling, or just go to YouTube and search for that particular video. I was kind of just cramming it, right? So it's not a good thing to cram the things, because it's not going to help you in building logic, because it then your brain doesn't brainstorm, right? You have stopped brainstorming those things, and you're just cramming those things. Okay, like this problem can be solved in this way, right? There's no other way. So that shouldn't be a task. So then I got to learn that of course you should also be learn from the blogs and articles as well, right? Blogs and articles as well. And of course you could also learn from, because I was practicing on lead code at that time, so I was going through, for example, if I have given some lead code challenge, or if I have solved any question, right, so I was going through their discussion form is like really good. Why? Because not only me, I was thinking, hey, I have solved this question, and my solution is like boom, it's working fine, and I've got this my solution got accepted, and there's a feeling of wow, that yeah, my solution got accepted. But when I'm seeing that my other guys, or like my other competitors, or my other peers, how their solution is more efficient in terms of like they have optimized the course in terms of space and time, right? And their logic is like, now I'm using 2 loops, but they have done this thing in only single loop, right? So it helped me a lot, because I wasn't getting to learn from myself, but I was also able to see or to learn from the others as well, right? Because of course you too know that a problem cannot be solved only in one way. There are many approaches to solve that problem, right? So that was really helping me to brainstorm that thing. So at that time, and you should also try to do this, because if I want to connect it with, because right now I'm also a software engineer intern at Infineon Technologies. So there because whenever you are a software engineer and you encounter a new challenge, right, so it's not going to be the day that you find a solution for you find a video for every solution you are going to encounter, right? So you should be good in writing or reading from documentations as well, writing articles, reading blogs, posts, right? So that's going to help you really well in that, right? Okay, if I specifically say to that, okay, of course that helped me in learning now my brain, or like now thinking of my thinking capability has broadened because of these reading from or learning from editorials and articles as well. Then the thing was that okay, but now if I want to do these kind of questions, like for example, like they are the standard questions, right? But if I want to know that where am I standing among the peers, right? For example, if you would be preparing for specifically for placement point of view, right? So if you are preparing for a placement, right? So at that time of say Amazon visits your campus, right? So at that time of giving online assessment, consider that 2000 students appear, right? So at that time, that the pressure, the kind of pressure that you are handling, your mind is handling, because now you need to get a decent rank among those 2000 students, right? So how can I do that, right? So at that time, then I realized that there are online good coding contests going on. Like for example, if you have aware about competitive programming, then you can begin practicing with Code Chef, Code Forces, SPOJ, right? And Lead Code, of course, specifically for the product based companies, or specifically for interviews, right? So there are like, and nowadays Coding Ninjas also provide there are tons of coding contests going on their website on Code Studio. So there are tons of coding contests, and that help you really fast, because at the time of online assessment, right, you will be going to compete not only with you. For example, if now I think that I'm able to solve the question, right? First of all, the first task should be that you are able to solve the question. Now the second time is the speed and accuracy. How fast are you able to write the code? And that's all competitive programming is all about, right? As I was saying, because as the name suggests, competitive programming, so you are competing with other peers, right? Or with other students, or like with other ones who are trying to solve that question in minimum time, right? In the minimum time, with of course optimized solution. If that's not the thing, I mean, that's the other case, optimizing the part. But the first part is that you should be write the code, and then maybe increase the writing of your code, and maybe increasing your speed and accuracy, right? So how can I do that? Because at that time I was just because in that course, right, you are preparing the course because when you are learning, then you are learning at your own pace and these things, but these things are not going to help yourself, because the kind of pressure when you are solving an online assessment, right, it's really huge. So these coding contests are going to help you in that, because then you can get to know that what is your rank among, for example, if there's a coding contest on Lead Code, right, and consider there are 15,000 students have participated in that, right? And if you can get to know that what is your rank among these students, that would be really helpful, right? Because then you'll get to know that how much, or like where do you stand out among these students, right? So these are the things that I could say that of course first of all, like choosing with data structures and algorithms, getting my fundamentals clear, then learning new algorithms, giving more competitions, giving more online coding contests, right? Then learning from the editorials and or reading from blogs. So these were the things that really helped me. Other thing was, right, whenever I was preparing specifically, if I say for a product based companies, then for example, nowadays consider a 1 month later, I'm going to have my Amazon interview or any other interview, right? So for that time I can specifically because the one thing is when you are revising, right? So it shouldn't be like that you are learning the new courses or new things and you are forgetting the other things. So what I was doing, I was also making a proper timetable, like a dedicated time slot, right? That I would be giving or I would be for example, this week I have learned array, so I at the end of my week, Saturday or Sunday, at weekend, I would be learning or revising all those problems, or now would be trying to do that by my own, because there could be a possibility when I was learning them, right? So I've seen those questions from directly videos or maybe editorials, but now it's time to revise the thing. So of course, learning things is important, but revising the things are important as well, right? And other thing is that because sometimes there comes a saturation point means that student or like a candidate who's preparing for these or targeting these product based companies or preparing for DSA, data structures and algorithms or programming, right? So they do say there comes a saturation point, they are like that they are not move on, or like they have just stuck up on it, like they are able to do the basic ones problem but not the higher ones, right? But you should try to come out of your zone, right? And how you can do that? You can do that by reading the articles, right, as I was earlier saying, or reading the editorials to learn, because learning is really important. And one more thing is, always make sure that you make a timetable. For example, if you are practicing 10 problems. So it shouldn't be like that, hey, during the whole week you were just chilling and you didn't find the time, but at the weekend you are solving 15 questions or 20 questions. No, but if you would be solving 3 questions per day or maybe 2 questions per day, I'm not saying that you should be solving 2 or 3, maybe you could do 5 or 10, but it depends upon you, right? So it depends upon you that how do you begin with it or how do you do. But you should also make a dedicated time slot for each one, right? Make a dedicated timetable that, okay, like for example, you would be reading the DSA for half an hour of the day, or you would be learning, or this would be the timetable, right? Because these things help you, because whenever you are a beginner, right, because the topic is about that how did I learn, or the challenges that I learned. So these were the challenges that I was able to like solve the problems, or like but sometimes it was the days where like 3-4 days where I was not even touching the DSA, and then there were the days during the weekend where I was solving 10 to 15 questions. But trust me, it's not going to help you really. You'll have to be really precise, really dedicated, and what I was saying, really consistent, because consistency comes with practice, and if you have become consistent, then trust me, you are definitely going to be a master. You're definitely going to be a master. They're like consistency, like there's nothing I think that can win over consistency, right? And another thing would be like whenever you are learning, right, as I was saying, that make a dedicated timetable and try to learn all those things. So you should be, because as a beginner these are the challenges that I was facing and how did I overcome with it, right? And another would be that I was actually solving these questions, right? So I was solving it by my own. So try to make a group of any friends, right, where you can discuss the problems, where you can brainstorm with each other, right? As I was saying, that a problem cannot be solved in only one way. There are more solutions to it, right? So you could also think that how others can think, or how others can solve that particular question, right? So these were the things that helped me in that code, or like in optimizing or in mastering the programming, right? So hope, I think that you were able to grasp something out of this video, and if you were able to get something out of this video, then please do make sure you subscribe the channel, right, and press the bell notification icon so you could get notified of every video that we are posting. And if specifically to this video, if you learned something out of, then do make sure that you subscribe the channel, and of course do share it among your friends, then they can also learn out of it. And of course, as I was saying, if you do think that there are also your experience and you think that can help someone or some beginner or anyone to begin or to help in programming, then you can share in the comments. Do feel free to comment it out, right? Because Coding Ninjas is all about growing and learning together, right? So till then, bye bye, have a good day.